Hello, and welcome to saveourmiddleclass.net. Today I'm going to talk to you about one word, and this one word has taken root in America. This word, over time, has destroyed civilizations, and we will not be an exception. This word has caused most of our country's worst problems. It is solely responsible for the financial meltdown of 2007 and 2008. It has destroyed our country's borders along with many of our social boundaries. It has destroyed the family structure upon which our country's strength has been built. Imagine that. One word has done all this damage and much, much more. And what is even more insidious is that we no longer use this word in everyday life, but we are feeling its destructiveness on a daily basis. That word is permissiveness. Permissiveness is the rot that impairs sound judgment. Those who preach permissiveness demand that we have no right to judge. The odd thing is that those who prescribe permissiveness for others are they themselves extremely judgmental of those who oppose it. Oppose it and you will find yourself publicly ridiculed. For today it is now our social and civic duty to become tolerant. But tolerance is only the first step. The real goal for progressives is for society to achieve the perfect state of nirvana, the pinnacle of all social harmony, acceptance. Yes, when we reach acceptance, then and only then will we be truly free. And of course, so will those whom are pushing for this new moral low ground. This is the new progressive goal for American society, to end all judgments and accept all behaviors. And it all begins with permissiveness. Let me tell you, if you are young, permissiveness is a wonderful thing, at least in their minds. It allows one to explore the world of desires. Young men love permissive girls, and when you couple that with permissive parents, well, you can really let your hair down and allow your more basic nature to rule your life. Permissive parents throw the greatest parties with drug, booze, and of course girls, all in an unsupervised atmosphere. Well, in the end, there are always consequences that ruin a good thing, but they are somewhere off in the distant future. So live for today. The cruelest fact of all is that the very people whom society depends upon to teach temperate values, our school officials, our elected politicians, parents and adults who should know better, are teaching permissiveness. After all, permissiveness is very popular. Teaching common sense limits and boundaries is not. Of course, they do not tell you that one leads to a better life and the other definitely does not. But be warned, when good people do not impose reasonable boundaries, problems are allowed to grow. And I'm not just talking about juvenile behavior. Our current Pope is permissive. He and his supporters call it mercy, but it is not mercy, as mercy always follows judgment. But since there is no judgment, this Pope is all about permissiveness. After all, as he said, who is he to judge? He is only the spiritual leader of one of the largest religious organizations in the world. But as I've said, permissiveness is very popular, and so is our current Pope. He knows that permissiveness does not lead to a virtuous life, so I'm unclear how he can justify this in his mind. But it is hard to believe, in my mind, that it was less than a lifetime ago that we had a Pope that lived under the rule of a communist government. And having experienced its full embrace, he was instrumental in bringing it down. That Pope is celebrated as a hero by many and as a saint by many, many more. But today we have the opposite in a Pope, as he embraces the communist governments of Cuba and most recently China. After all, who is he to judge? Well, strangely enough, he does judge America's right to retain a country with borders, while at the same time he ignores the plight of the Guatemalan poor who illegally cross Mexico's southern border. They are suffering severe, and I'll say it again, severe abuse at the hands of the Mexican government. But he says nothing about that. And what about the American poor? Why does he not speak up for them, as they suffer most from the illegal immigration into the U.S. that he supports? It is the American poor and the American middle class who suffer, but again, he is silent. It is a mystery why this Pope ignores the poor Guatemalans, the dissidents in Cuba, and our American poor. Our president and many of our current politicians are also permissive. Permissiveness removes boundaries and moral and legal constraints. Hey, you Bernie Sanders supporters, it was permissiveness that allowed the bankers to keep their profits and pass their losses on to us, the American taxpayer. So do you now understand the cost of permissiveness? And keep in mind that permissiveness is also preventing the bankers from ever being held accountable. Permissiveness allows national borders to disappear, which further erodes our middle-class job market. Permissiveness allows our president to choose which laws to enforce and which ones to ignore, especially when it comes to his personal friends. Permissiveness allows corrupt politicians to become exceedingly wealthy and spread the wealth to their family and friends. The Clintons are a prime example of money in politics. Both Hillary and Bill have had government jobs their entire lives, and yet they have become extremely wealthy. This one doesn't pass the smell test. Permissiveness is a pandemic that has captured our elected officials in Washington, D.C. It has done more damage to our lives than the worst-case scenario of an Ebola outbreak. Keep in mind that there will be consequences, and they are heading our way. One of the worst examples of permissiveness is our government spending. Our money is being spent without any constraints, and our debt is so high, so massive, so expansive that we will never be able to control it, let alone pay it off. Our current debt is over $19 trillion and is forecasted to shortly be over $30 trillion. Let's look at that figure in miles. In miles, 30 trillion is nearly 5 light years from Earth, an incomprehensible figure. So in the end, is there any value in permissiveness for our American society? No, there is not. But remember, it is very popular. That is, until it's consequence time, and then it isn't so popular. If nothing else, I want you to remember this thought. Permissiveness and folly are constant companions. We need sound leadership, good judgment, and common sense in Washington, D.C. We need to replace permissiveness with measured moderation. It is where we need to meet as a country, right there in the middle. As always, may God bless our American middle class. Thank you and goodbye.